Now, I would like to introduce to you Shlok Shah, Operations Director of the Synergies work. With a background in marketing, Shlok has launched and worked with startups in the healthcare, manufacturing, and promotional product spaces. Currently, Shlok leads Synergies Work I2I program and helps 20+ entrepreneurs each year to launch their own business. Thank you, Shlok, for being with us today. Take it away.
Thanks, Ruth. Hey, everyone. I'm really glad to have you in the room. Today, we are going to be talking about how you can take your idea and turn it into a sustainable business. So I'm going to go ahead and start screen sharing. Oh, give me one sec. Okay. So like I said, today we're going to be talking about how you can turn your idea into a business. Now, I'm not sure about how many people in this room are entrepreneurs, but if you are one, if you just started, or if you're not, we're going to be giving you some tangible information that you can use to turn whatever you may be thinking about into at least the first steps of a business. So just a little bit about Synergies work before we jump in. Synergies work is a nonprofit organization. Our purpose is to build one world where people with disabilities belong through entrepreneurship. We are the first and largest incubator and accelerator program for small business owners with disabilities. Since we've started, we've helped over 200 entrepreneurs with their businesses and launched 70+ startups. We actually recently won the Truest Inspire Award, and we're part of the Clinton Global Initiative's Moonshot for entrepreneurs with disabilities. So as we go through this presentation, you'll see some of the services that we offer, but also these are things that are available through other organizations across the country that will help you on your path to becoming an entrepreneur. And then just to quickly touch on kind of our pillars, our three main programs are our Synergies Work Marketplace, which is an online marketplace where entrepreneurs with disabilities can list their products and services. We have our I2I program, which is our incubator and accelerator. And then we have our Learning Hub, which is a public resource library and entrepreneur education platform where you can learn everything you need to know about becoming an entrepreneur. So the agenda for today's presentation, first, we're going to be talking about purpose and how you can discover that. Then we'll talk about how to build a support system. Then we'll talk about building for sustainability, and then work-life balance, and finally, how to separate yourself from your business. So one question I want you all to think about is, what would you do if you had $5 and 2 hours and your objective was to increase the amount of money that you had? This was a study done by the Harvard Business School many years ago, and they gave a group of students $5 and told them, go outside, you have 2 hours to turn that $5 into more money. The most successful groups, they didn't buy something with that $5 and resell it. They didn't figure out, okay, how can I invest this $5? Instead, they didn't think about the limitations that they had. The most successful groups were the ones who went out and said, let's not worry about the $5 that we have. Let's see what inherent value can we bring to other people. So there was a group of students who went around and they booked reservations at restaurants and then sold them to other people who, because I believe it was around Valentine's Day, so it was in high demand. There's another group of students who actually reached out to an organization who was doing research on students and said, hey, we will volunteer our time and we will be your study group, your, what is it called? I forget what it's called, but we'll be your study group so you can ask us questions, and they raised money that way. So as we go through this discussion, one thing I want you all to think about is, whether you have a disability or not, don't think about what you may be limited by. Think about what possibilities are out there for you. So when we jump into the conversation around purpose, the reason why we always start with purpose in our incubator, that's the first thing we talk about, is your customers don't buy what you do or what you have. They buy why you do it. The reason why you exist as a business is almost more important than the products and services you're providing. So this is a graphic that we use to illustrate that. And I'll describe the graphic as well for anybody who might not be able to follow. So when we're talking about purpose, we use a phrase called Arth, and in Hindi that essentially means purpose. But there's 4 things that feed into what your purpose is. First, it's something that you're good at. You may do it every day. You may be very skilled at it. You might have studied it, or it might just be something you're naturally talented at. but that's not generally enough. On top of that, you have to say, well, is this something that I love to do? You may be the best person in the world at doing something, but if you hate doing it, then this probably isn't your purpose. And then on top of that, we have to ask ourselves, well, what does the world need? I may be good at doing something, I may love to do it, but am I really bringing value to the world? And once you've gone through those three things, then we come back to kind of what it all boils down to, and it's what can you get paid for? So when you're thinking of a business idea, when you're just starting out, try to go through these 4 items. Ask yourself, what am I good at? What do I love to do? What does the world need? And what can I be paid for? And if you can find something that you feel meets these 4 requirements, then I think you've started a good path for your business. So what is a purpose? So you may find, okay, hey, my purpose is doing X, Y, Z, but what do you use that purpose for? Your purpose really functions as your North Star. As your organization grows, as you start making more difficult decisions as a business owner, and you have to decide, what direction do I want to grow in? What values define my company? Your purpose is what you should always fall back to. It guides your path forward. It becomes your North Star, where when you may be lost, when you may be doing a million things over the course of a day, you can always think, okay, is everything I'm doing feeding back to my purpose? A lot of times we see larger companies talk about this in terms of their culture, where they may have a specific purpose and that is present in all of their culture. So you may go to work for a company, you may feel like, wow, this is a great place to be. I love being a part of the team here. That generally stems from that company's purpose, and they've used that to really define their culture. So keep that in mind when you're starting out. These are great questions to ask yourselves at the very beginning. When you're 6 months down the line and you realize that, oh, hey, I don't really like what I'm doing, it becomes a lot more difficult to go through these conversations and adjust your plans. So we have some examples of the purposes of major companies that you all probably know. The first one is Dick's Sporting Goods. They are a sporting goods store. They're all across the US. Their purpose is creating confidence and excitement by personally equipping all athletes to achieve their dreams. Now, I know for a lot of people, this may just sound like corporate speak, but if you really read through their purpose statement, you'll find a lot of little hints that help them define their strategies. So when they say we create confidence and excitement, that tells you instantly the kind of feeling they want somebody to have when they walk through their store. You want to walk through those doors and see all the different sports equipment. You want to get excited at, oh, wow, if I had, those shoes, I could play better in my next basketball game. Or, wow, there's a kayak hanging off the wall. That inspires me to go out and makes me excited when I'm going to go whitewater rafting. And then the next phrase is personally equipping all athletes. That implies that their purpose is not just, hey, you can walk into a big box store, you'll see all really cool stuff on the walls, you buy it, you check out, you're done. They want to have somebody there who's personally doing, guiding you to the things you need. If you have a question about something, they'll have somebody there. And then lastly, it's achieve their dreams. It's not just for people who need some sporting equipment. It's people who want to achieve their athletic dreams. So this one sentence can define so many different elements of Dick's moving forward. And as an organization grows, it becomes harder and harder to do those things. And the purpose is usually what you fall back to. Let's see. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the trap of being a solo entrepreneur. If any of you here are business owners, and especially if you're just starting out, it can be a pretty lonely job at first. You're on your own. You feel like you're the only one responsible for making sure things go right. You may even be the person who is not really getting paid. You might have to pay your employees, but you might be the one who's taking all the losses. You're the one taking the financial risk. So today we're going to talk about how can you not be stuck in that trap? Because believe it or not, when somebody says that being that entrepreneurship is a solo sport, I think they're wrong. In fact, entrepreneurship is a team sport. A lot of people think that, hey, I started my own company. That means I have to do everything myself. I'm not that great at accounting, but that because I'm the business owner, that means I have to be the one doing my books. There's certain things that I'm not comfortable doing, but I have to get over my fears and I have to tough it out. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not necessarily the case. Every successful entrepreneur that you can think of probably has a whole team behind them. And when you're starting out, it's very important to understand that, realize that, and know you can ask for help. So I have a quote on the left side of the screen. That's a myth, that being a startup founder means I can't ask others for help. And I want you all to know that it is almost a requirement for a successful startup founder to ask for help. Because at the end of the day, if entrepreneurship is a team sport, that means you can't play every position on the field. You want to pick the roles that you're best at. You want to focus on your strengths. And if you have certain things that may not be your forte, that they may be your weaknesses, rather than trying to force yourself to understand, hey, how can I do this thing that I'm really not great at, or I'm really not comfortable doing? Think about, how can I bring other people in who can help me? So there's a few different ways we can do that, especially when you're starting out. One of the easiest ways for y'all to think about building a support team is reaching out to your friends and family. These are the people who have been there for you, since you were born. A lot of times they're people you've known for years, and ask them to help if you need it. You might have a loved one who is really good at social media, and maybe social media is not your forte. Well, at the beginning, it's okay to ask them, like, hey, can you show me how to do this? If you don't want to ask them to be fully responsible for it, or maybe they would love to help you, but know to ask. Then there's people who are considered mentors. These are your coaches. They're the people who have experience in what you're doing. They can give you a perspective. A lot of times your friends and family may be there for you and be able to support you, but they're not in the business that you're in. So you want somebody who knows your space and can guide you through any obstacles or any opportunities that may pop up. And then the last kind of support team person that you want is peers. You don't want to just be alone trying to make it in the world with your business idea. Chances are, there's billions of people in the world. There's at least a few other people who are doing something similar to what you're doing. Whether it's you can meet them online, might be able to meet them in person, but having just a relationship or being aware of people who are walking the same path as you makes it feel a lot less lonely, and you can also get a lot of insight in terms of what they're doing. So when we're talking about involving family or friends, there's a few things I want you all to keep in mind. The first is you shouldn't just involve people because they are family and friends. Trusting somebody, being familiar with them is great. It definitely helps. But if that's the only reason you're bringing somebody into the fold, it might not work out for you long term. It's very important to have a clear expectation in terms of what you need, and find somebody who's able to do that thing. If you need somebody to do, like my earlier example, social media, maybe your teenage cousin who is on TikTok all day would be a great person to ask for that. But your grandmother who has never been on social media, as motivated as she may be, as excited as she may be to help you with your startup, she's probably not the best fit for that role. So it's very important for you to have a good idea of what you need and find people who actually have those expertise. If you have a loved one who's just really eager and they want to learn, that's great. But just know that is a burden. You'll have to teach them how to do that thing as well. One really tricky part that you may not consider at the beginning is it's your company at the end of the day. When you invite friends and family into your business, they may try to take over some decision-making aspects. At Synergies Work, we believe it's very important for the entrepreneur to be the one running the company. There may be certain things that you're not great at that you may defer to other people, but have a clear vision for what you want with your business, and make sure that your friends and family, when they join, they know what it is. Because the last thing you want is somebody comes in, they have a completely different idea of how you should be doing things, and they take over. Now, say you found somebody who you want to work with, you want to invite to help you with your business, they're a family member. A good way to start is do small, specific, simple tasks. You can ask them like, hey, I have this event coming up. I need to do this small thing. Can you please help me? A lot of times, if you give people very specific things they can do, it makes it easy for you to see how likely are they to follow through with it, how eager or interested are they in helping you, and what would that working relationship be like? I want to emphasize that term working relationship, because while your personal relationship may be great, you might not necessarily work well together with that person. So it's very important to at least test the waters before making a long-term commitment. And then speaking of long-term commitment, as you grow your business, as you start making enough to have your own salary, hire employees, you need to have a plan for those family members who have helped you grow. there's a very good chance you're going to outgrow the help that they're able to provide. And, you may be making $100,000 a year, but if your mom is doing your social media, or if your sister's doing your social media because that's how it's always been, is that the best decision for your business? So have a strategy for what happens when you outgrow them. Maybe you can hire them on, maybe it can be a formal relationship. Maybe you can just have a frank discussion that, hey, we're at the point where we can hire somebody to do this, or bring in an agency or something like that, or somebody else to help. Thank you so much for what you're doing. I think it's time, maybe you move on. So keep these things in mind when you're talking to friends and family. I know a lot of you, if you're starting a business, this is going to be among one of the first things that you do. So just keep these few tips in mind before you get too far down the line and you regret some decisions. So the next thing we're going to talk about is mentors. So mentorship in general is a word that gets thrown around a lot. I think every entrepreneur gets told to find mentors, and a lot of times you don't really get told how to find them. So we're going to just briefly talk about the different types of mentors and how you can find them. I'm going to go over 5 different types of mentors. On the screen, there's 5 kind of bullets that have the different types. I'm just going to talk through them. So the first one is the master of the craft. This is somebody who is an expert in your field. If you are just starting out, this is a person who is essentially a Jedi master. These mentors are very helpful, especially if you're trying to improve your skills. And they might be able to guide you to tools that you may not have known are out there. They might be able to give you an outside perspective on the work you're doing. And they'll really be able to help you take your product or service to a professional level. The next kind of mentor is a champion. We like to call it a personal PR team. This is somebody who is out there constantly talking you up, telling all their friends about you, telling all their coworkers about you, somebody who can really champion everything that you're doing. And they might be the person who is helping you with your social media. They might be somebody who is opening doors for you and making connections. This champion is really good to have, especially at the beginning. And if you can mix and match it with somebody else, that's always great. Yes, a hype woman. I just saw a chat that somebody said a hype woman. Yep, having a hype woman on your team is always great. And it always makes you feel pretty nice too when you have a cheerleader like that. Then the next thing is a co-pilot. These are mentors / partners, but essentially there's somebody who you feel comfortable going to, and you can talk through the little things when it comes to work. I know at Synergies work, like we will sit down in meeting rooms and just hash out like, hey, there's this idea that we really need to talk through. And a lot of times it'll be with somebody who I view as a co-pilot. So this person should essentially be somebody you're comfortable going to, saying, hey, I have this customer that's really giving me a headache. Somebody who you can talk to, you can vent, you can think through ideas. I think it's difficult to find a person like that, but once you do, oftentimes it becomes somebody you can keep going back to for a long time, even as you grow. They become almost your confidant. And then next is an anchor. This type of mentor is somebody who is outside of the space you operate in. I think, especially as an entrepreneur at the very beginning, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. Having a mentor who might be able to bring a different perspective to things, who might not operate in the same industry as you, who might care more about your overall well-being or overall professional development, rather than just making sure you make the next sale. Having somebody like this can be really helpful, especially when we talk about things like mental health and not burning out and making sure you're taking care of yourself. And then finally, one thing I always recommend is once you start a business, within a few months, you learn so many things. And you may feel like, oh, I'm just a newbie, I'm just starting out. I challenge you to think about the people in your life, and do you have the opportunity to be a mentor to them? My dad always told me that if you want to learn something, the best way is to teach. So think about being a reverse mentor, or finding a reverse mentor, essentially being a mentor to somebody, because through teaching them, through helping them with their business, you in fact will become a better business owner on your end. Now, that's great. You all know what the different types of mentors are, but how do you find mentors? That's a very difficult task. If you don't already have an established network, it can be hard to really find the people who are going to support you. So here are a few things you can kind of plan out before you go searching. So the first thing to keep in mind is figure out what you want to accomplish. While it's great to have mentors for the sake of having, people on your side, I think it's very important to have a certain objective with each mentor. And that doesn't mean that it has to be a transactional relationship where you're just trying to get something out of it. It can mean that, hey, this mentor is my person who's going to make sure I'm taking care of my mental health. Just having that kind of overall objective means that, okay, I'm going to be looking for somebody who I feel like comforts me, who can give me an outside perspective, who can make sure I'm taking care of myself. So if you set these goals before you go searching for a mentor, your efforts will be much more focused. Then the next thing is just picking what kind of mentor you want. We've been through all the different types. Think through what kind of person you're looking for, and it'll help you identify people within your network or people who you might be searching for who can fit that bill. And then next, that's exactly what the next point is. Who in your network fits the bill? Look through your current connections. If you use something like LinkedIn and you're constantly connecting with people, there might be people you haven't really talked to very much, but if you are comfortable reaching out to them, if they fit your goals, if they fit the type of mentor you want, it might be a good opportunity to take advantage of that. If you don't really have a network, one thing I'd recommend is checking out like local chambers of commerce. They're a very good way to build a network within your local business community. Nowadays, there's plenty of online business communities, especially if you're in the disability space and you're talking about disabled founders. So be open to virtual, in-person, look for opportunities to build your network so you can find people who might serve as mentors. Once you've done that, very important thing is to make the ask. I always recommend if somebody is looking for a mentor, have a pitch ready. Don't just go up to them and say, hey, would you be my mentor? Make the case for why what you're doing is important and what you're looking for with them. So, as business owners, I'm sure you all have some degree of an elevator pitch. Try to refine that so it really captivates somebody. If I was somebody who sold, let's say, we have an entrepreneur who makes handcrafted pens. So if I had an entrepreneur who made pens and he was looking for a mentor, there's a big difference between him going up to somebody and say, hey, I make pens, would you be my mentor? And him saying, hey, my name is Dan, I make handcrafted pens because I believe in quality craftsmanship for people with disabilities. I'm blind. This is what I do. This is my big vision. Would you be interested in helping me? Having that pitched, refined, and knowing what to ask makes a huge impact. And then the last thing when we're talking about mentors is nurture the relationship. Make sure it's not just, hey, you're my mentor, now we're bonded for life. It has to be something you maintain. When they give you feedback, be open to it. You might have a certain way of doing things. They might give you a different perspective. You don't want to immediately reject it. And then follow up with them, keep them updated. Mentors love knowing that they've helped because that's why they agreed to do it in the first place. So if they give you some advice, and it went well, tell them that, hey, this thing you told me to do went so well. I was able to do this, and that. And then, of course, say thank you, show gratitude. And lastly, figure out how you can also help them. If it becomes a symbiotic relationship where you're both helping each other grow as an entrepreneur, that's fantastic. That means that's something that you're both going to want to maintain and keep on rather than, well, you're the only person benefiting, so the other person may not be too eager to help you. So I know we've been over a lot of information so far. If anybody has questions or comments, please put in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on that. And I believe the moderator also is. So next, we're going to go into peers. There's a lot of people out there who are probably doing something similar to what you're doing. And having peers that you're connecting with, that you're working together with, opens up a lot of opportunities. So these are just a few different ways. I think somebody is drawing on the screen. Anyways, I'll go ahead. So these are just a few different ways that you can work with peers. You can learn strategies that they may have tried that you haven't considered. For every business, every business owner, they do things very differently. I know people who are in the same industry, within a few blocks of each other, who have completely different approaches to their business. Okay, there's still a few lines on the screen. Anyways. Then the next thing is figuring out pitfalls, figuring out what mistakes have they made, how you can learn from them, how you can avoid those mistakes. And one thing I really encourage all entrepreneurs to do is think of ways to partner. I know a lot of times it can feel like, hey, this person is competition. But at the end of the day, the pie is big enough for everybody. And if you can figure out ways to help and promote other entrepreneurs where you also benefit, that can create a very long lasting relationship that will grow with you. So I've previously worked with clients in the restaurant business. And it's one of my favorite things, because when you have a good restaurant idea and you get in on the ground floor where you're helping somebody's marketing or their strategy, and then you get to see them grow. And then you in turn end up growing your services with them. They end up being successful, you end up being successful. So highly recommend figuring out ways to partner with other people, especially your peers, and don't think of people necessarily as competition, but think of them as just other entrepreneurs who are doing the same thing you're doing, and maybe there's some opportunities for you to help each other out. And that kind of comes into the next bullet, which is exchange. What can you do for each other? Figure out how you can support each other. And lastly, connections. Who can you open the doors to? Everybody has their own networks. You may know a certain amount of people, they may know a certain amount of people. If you're able to access each other's networks, it opens up a whole variety of possibilities for you. So one thing I did want to shout out is the Synergies Work Learning Hub. This is our platform for entrepreneurs where we have a lot of resources, and it is a networking platform for entrepreneurs with disabilities where you can go on there, you can sign up for free. We have content that's made by entrepreneurs with disabilities for entrepreneurs with disabilities. And we are constantly adding guides, workshops, events, things like that. So if you're wanting to get started on building your network and you're not sure how, I invite you all to join. It's completely free, and you can join at learn.synergieswork.org. The link is in the presentation. So if you pulled the PDF that all of you should have access to, you can get to it from there. And then one thing I did want to shout out as well is our I2I entrepreneurship program. If you're just starting out as an entrepreneur, this is a great program for you where you can really take your business to the next level. We run this program twice a year, in the spring and the fall. We just finished our fall cohort, and our next spring one will be starting in, applications will open in January. But the way this program works is we have weekly learning labs where you learn a lot of the things you need to know as a business owner who's just starting. We do individual coaching, and we have a 2-year commitment to all of our entrepreneurs. Once you finish the program, you continue to get one-on-one coaching from us. You get access to resources, grants, things like that for 2 years following. So just wanted to quickly shout those out. Now, we're going to talk about the next topic, which is building sustainability. I know we don't have a ton of time. I want to leave some time for Q&As. So I wanted to define sustainability for everybody, because I think we hear about sustainable businesses a lot, and we don't necessarily know what that means. So sustainability is the ability to last. That means that you are going to be around for a while, and that your business model is built for that. So when we talk about self-sufficiency, that means supporting yourself. A lot of people mistake this for sustainability, where, hey, I am working, I've started a business, I'm able to pay myself a salary, I don't have to rely on public benefits, I can get my own place, I can get a car, I'm able to pay my bills. That is sufficiency. Sustainability is different. It's not just about paying your own salary, it's about having a business that can grow, that is able to make consistent profit, that has a steady way of covering costs, and doing so year after year after year. And I think the most important part is without you necessarily having to be involved. If something were to happen to you tomorrow, is your business still going to be able to go on? Or even if you are at the core of your business, have you refined your processes to where you might be able to have somebody else step in your role and continue maintaining your business? So when we talk about sustainability, we're going to talk about the 4 stages of growth, because sustainability comes at the last stage, but I think everybody should understand what the big picture is. So when you're just starting out, you're in the startup stage. You are an early entrepreneur, you launched your business recently, and you are trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? That, can take, for some people, a few months. For other people, this can be a multiple year-long process. And either one's fine. It really just depends on your business. But once you get past that stage, then you get into early growth. This is where you start getting some traction. Hey, my idea is good. I'm getting some customers. I'm building a client base. I am selling products, whatever that may mean for your business. Generally, that early growth is when you see your revenue start ticking up, when you start seeing your business grow, You might start hiring people. And this, again, it can vary. Some people hit the stage after 6 months, some people take multiple years. But once you get to that early growth state, at a certain point, something will click. You will figure out your processes well enough. You will find a market opportunity that you're really able to take advantage of. And if you stay in there long enough and you work at it hard enough, you will hit a high growth stage where, okay, hey, now people really like what we're doing. And we are seeing a lot more demand than we expected. We're growing. We are able to hire a lot of people. We're able to sell more products. We're able to expand into different areas. That's a very exciting stage. I think that's what we all hear about. Like, hey, this company went from a tiny, 5-person operation to a massive, billion-dollar company. And I think that's where the story generally ends. And we're like, okay, that's great. But after that is what really matters. That's stable growth. These are, stable growth is essentially the goal of any company, that you're not doubling in size every year, because that you can only do that for so long. But you might be growing by 5 or 10% every year. You might be, slightly bumping up your customer count. You might be expanding into new areas that slightly increase, your revenue. That stable growth is what the goal should be for any organization. And obviously, if you can maintain high growth forever, that'd be great. But I think at the end of the day, it's just not sustainable, because you are taking risks during the high growth stage. So we're going to be talking about stable growth and maintaining sustainability. I just want everybody to have a big picture of what to know. So when it comes to sustainability, it's different for each person. I think it's very important to know that. And you should ask yourself a few questions at the beginning when you're just starting out, so you know what the long-term plan is. So the first thing is, when you think about your business being sustainable, what does that mean in terms of who's involved? There's companies who are sustainable where it's just the person who's running the company. They told themselves that, hey, I want to make a certain amount of income. I want to be able to support my family, my lifestyle. I want to, pay my mortgage. I want to be able to do this and put away some money for retirement. If I can do this for, X number of years and build my business so it's able to grow a certain amount or maybe stay stable, then I think I'm sustainable. So that's great. For other people, that may mean, hey, I want to have, a large number of employees. I want to maybe get like outside funding. I want to have a bunch of people involved. That's fine too. But it's very important to have that picture when you start. And if you don't know, that's okay. But I think ask yourself these questions as you grow, so you can get a very clear picture of what a sustainable business looks like by the time you get there. Then the next thing is knowing when you want to run. So there's two concepts I have in here: running and jogging. When you're launching a business, there is, I like for people to think of it as a marathon, because it's a very long process, and there's going to be times where you really need to focus, put a lot of time and energy into it and run. And there's times where you can take it easy, you can jog, you can let things kind of grow naturally. So as you grow your business, you want to think about, what times do I really want to put in a lot of time and energy? Generally, that's at the beginning. So if you're just starting up, you might say, hey, for the next, 12 months, I want this to be my main focus. And then if I'm getting the results that I want, then I will continue doing this. If it's not working, maybe I need to recalibrate. Or, hey, I'm thinking about having kids in 5 years. I want to make sure that at that point, I can take it a little easy. So think about these things a little beforehand. That way, whether you're kind of living the lifestyle that you want. Because if you don't plan this ahead of time, it's very easy for things to get out of hand. It's really easy to become, that person who just worked away their 40s and didn't see their kids and didn't really do the things they wanted to do outside of their business. So after that, ask yourself, what does stable growth look like to you? That's something we briefly touched on earlier. When you reach that state of growth, do you want to be growing 5% each year? Do you want to be growing 20% each year? And these are goals. You don't necessarily need to say, hey, is this, feasible, or is this going to happen every year? This just means when you start planning now for the next, 10, 20 years, that, hey, ultimately my goal is to have this level of growth. And then the last thing that I think a lot of people don't think about is, how are you going to exit? You're not going to be doing your business for forever. And I think when you start your business, it may not be clear, but as you grow, you should ask yourself, How do I want to get out of this business? Do I want to sell my business? Do I want to pass it on to a loved one? Do I want to retire and shut the door? Just asking yourself these questions, and we could have a whole conversation about exit strategy, but just think about this early on, and just ask yourself this question, a couple times a year, and I think it'll really help you focus on where you're going. And then I think one of the last things we're going to touch on is just work-life balance. I think that's been almost a central theme through everything we've talked about, but as an entrepreneur, it's easy to burn yourself out. So make sure you actively try not to do that. One of the most important things is just knowing what you can and can't do, and also knowing what you want to do. I think a lot of times entrepreneurs expect that, hey, I have to do everything. Even if I don't want to do it, I just have to suck it up. But doing things you don't want to do takes up a lot of willpower. And believe it or not, willpower is something that we have in limited supply for each person. And if you're spending all your energy making yourself do things you don't want to do, then you're going to completely destroy your work-life balance. You're not going to have the energy to do things that actually matter. The next thing is set boundaries. It's easy to think about the business owners who are saying, oh, I'm up till 3 a.m. and I wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym and work out all the time. While it's a nice story, I don't know any successful business owner who actually does that. I think some of the most successful people I know shut their phones off at 5 o'clock, and you can't reach them until 9 a.m. the next day, because they say, hey, this is when I'm going to be working, and everything outside of that is for other things. So set that personal time, set those limits. It might be a little tough at the beginning, but I think make sure your end goal is having those clear boundaries. And then, of course, find releases, hobbies, vacations, volunteering. I think it's very easy to let your business become all consuming, where that's the only thing you do and that's all you do. But having other things that give you an outside perspective, that give you a break from what you do all the time, it will in fact make you better at what you're doing. And then lastly, mindfulness. Just know yourself well enough to say, hey, I am exhausted. I'm not going to be able to work today. Or, hey, I'm not at my 100%. Or maybe, hey, I am ready to go. Like I know I'm going to be productive. So we have a couple of quick videos. I just wanted to share some of the entrepreneurs I've gone through our program and what they've done. So you all can get an idea of who's out there, that there's other people who are starting businesses as individuals with disabilities. So you should get the audio on my end. I'm just going to play this.
I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. So I went to school for communications to learn how to be behind the scenes and in front of the camera. When I lost my sight, I felt like my dream was gone. I couldn't do that not being able to see. So one day I was actually performing, because I'm a spoken word artist, and this blind guy comes up to me and he was like, I heard a lot about you. And I was like, you heard a lot about me, tell me about you. And he told me he was an audio engineer. And I said, well, I have a question. I was wondering if you can teach me what you do. And from that point, he flew me to Chicago. He taught me everything I know about audio engineering, and I just fell in love with it. Because it was, it's what I went to school to do, and to be able to do it blind, I fell in love with it. The first question people have when they find out I'm an engineer is, how do you do that, being blind? So being able to step on the scene with sighted engineers and being better than them, that's success, and I just love proving myself. What brought me to Synergies is basically I wanted to expand my brand. I wanted to be more than an artist and more than an engineer. So after going through the Synergies program, they helped me so much to be able to now print my own merchandise, to be able to sell at the shows that I'm invited to perform at. I'll be performing at the end of this month, and for the first time I'll be able to set up my table and sell my merchandise, and I am so humble and excited.
Right, so that was Jasmine, and I'm going to show you one other entrepreneur. Let's see.
We were in the middle of the pandemic, and Ashton just didn't have his normal activities of going to the gym or going out with an activity director, and he just really needed a purpose, and he has a desire to work, and being self-employed really works well for him. Running a business from home, I end up with a lot of cardboard boxes and material, and my husband felt that that was an option for Ashton to be employed, be self-employed, to help me recycle the cardboard boxes, and that it would carry on into the community for residential homes and small businesses.
We started Unbox because to help the environment, also to help with my bills, and to keep me busy after I got done with high school. We started with 4 houses. Now we have 36 houses and businesses. When we're done with collecting boxes, we go to a recycling center, go on a scale, weigh in, go off scale, and then we go to an area where we unpack the boxes and put them in the bin. We get paid every 2 tons of cardboard. We make money from recycling center and customers.
Synergies has really helped Ashton understand that there's a community that is a lot like him, that has the same obstacles he has. Fellow business owners that he's been able to connect with has been great. The mentorships, the ideas that have been given to us that are outside of the box of what we may have already have thought of has been a great help, and just the fact he has even just more people supporting him is phenomenal. When we learned about the Synergies I2I program, we thought it would be a great fit for Ashton to expand his understanding of business.
I love being my own boss because I can get to choose when to work, and also if I get overwhelmed, I can take a little break. Since we're growing, we're going to be able to hire workers and get a new van with AC.
I think one of the biggest successes is how the community has really supported him, that he is making a dent in the environment is just huge. I mean, 30 tons of cardboard in just over a year is a lot of cardboard for one person to recycle.
All right, so that's pretty much it for the presentation, folks. I hope you learn a lot of information. If we have any Q&As, I'm not sure if we have time, but happy to answer those.
Yeah, sure. We do have one question here. How or where can I find and connect with entrepreneurs who are like me or have an idea and working to launch, but I'm mute by disability and needing help to keep moving forward to launch my online business? Can you advise or provide referrals?
Yeah, definitely. So I would invite y'all to join the Synergies Work Learning Hub. You can go to synergieswork.org and find us, our learning hub there. That's a community of entrepreneurs with disabilities. Outside of that, I mentioned earlier, looking into your local chamber of commerce. Those are business, leaders from within your area who might be able to provide a lot more local information about that you may need. You might be able to connect with them. Generally, there is a small fee to join a chamber, but if you're just starting out, it's definitely worth it. Outside of that, there's a lot of now online groups for entrepreneurs. I would say, look into Facebook groups, there's Discord servers, and maybe don't even look just for entrepreneurial groups. If you're operating in a certain space, okay, somebody has to be unmuted. But if you're operating within a certain space or industry, look into people who are just interested in those things. We have one of our entrepreneurs, she has an online craft store where she sells crafting kits, materials, things like that. And she is very plugged into the crafting community. And they kind of help her advertise her business, kind of learn more about the industry trends and things like that. So I would advise on doing that.
Yeah, and they're asking if you could provide the website again, or if you can put it in the chat, that would be great. But thank you so much, Shlok. We really appreciate your time today. Thank you for today's presentation.